This video will contain spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen chapters 98, 99, most of 100, and about half of 101, and Season 2, Episode 12, otherwise known as Episode 36. I messed up the spoiler tag for the chapters last week. Sorry about that. So the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen needs to sharpen its knife, and in this series I'm going to be analyzing the story of the series as it airs, and, as a manga reader, comparing the anime to the manga to see what they pulled over directly, what they modified or expanded, and what they just straight up removed. The script is written based on the manga, so if the action plays out a little differently in the anime, that's why, and I will note where it does, but the results are the same, so it's no big deal. So let's begin with the 12th episode of Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. First, I'll recap the plot and explain what chapters it covered. The episode begins with a quick reaction from Nanami, who's obviously just about as angry as we are over Eiichi, arriving to find him yakitori'd at 9:44 p.m. Then we jump ahead to 10:02 p.m. to see events coinciding with the fights from last episode. Mei is woman-handling the curse user we saw approach them a couple episodes back, and explains that because her technique is merely the ability to control crows, she's worked hard to train her body and fighting abilities, which seems to have paid off as she dominates this rat-faced loser. Do you think his hat is meant to be like a skinned cursed spirit, or is it just an animal-themed hat like a kid would wear? Anyway, I won't indulge the rest of this scene. Basically, the point is that Mei first strengthened her body, then hit a limit there, which got her to go back and master her technique as well, which is why she was able to become a grade 1 sorcerer. And then she kills the guy. Rip rat-face loser, we hardly knew you. We cut to the last of the 3 nails being broken, and the anti-sorcerer curtain being dispersed. It is 10:04 p.m., showing that pretty much the entire last episode only took 3 minutes in real time to unfold. Yuji is initially confused, and apparently thought the 3 nails correspond to all the remaining curtains. Megumi explains that either all 3 of the nails were used for the one curtain, or 2 of them were dummies to disguise the actual nail in charge of the curtain. As Megumi laments that they can't get any info out of the old man now that he's out cold, he looks up and sees Ino falling from the top of the cerulean tower. He summons Nue to try and catch him, but misses. Thankfully, Ino rolls off of Nue and slows his descent enough for Yuji to run over and catch him. Yuji is shaken upon seeing the damage done to Ino, and then we cut away to the man who did the damage. Sweater Boy asks his grandmother what to do now that the curtain is gone, and starts beatboxing. She fails a perception check and doesn't notice her grandson having a meltdown, responding that Gojo is still sealed, so he should go out and continue killing sorcerers. He doesn't respond right away, and when she performs another perception check to see why, this time he turns and it seems there is no Sweater Boy, only Toji, and he doesn't like being given orders like that. She finally hops away from him in fear and wonders aloud how this can be happening if she only summoned the body's information. She explains that she specifically does not summon the soul's information to avoid this worst-case scenario. Toji seems a little confused at first, but pieces it together pretty fast, proving that he not only got the looks and the brawn, but also the brains. After all, he is Akutami's favorite. He figures that because of his heavenly restriction, his body beat out Sweater Boy's soul, effectively allowing him to reincarnate, in essence, resurrecting him. As Ogami attempts to understand this and how it could happen, Toji already has her by the hair and makes good on her command to kill sorcerers, starting with her. Cutting again, we see a conversation between Nobara, Maki, and Nita. As Maki continues casually taking out curses and/or transfigured humans, Nobara explains that it sounded like Eiichi was attacked while talking to Nita on the phone, and she wants to go check on him. Maki sends Nobara with Nita to go check on them, as the situation is starting to feel off to her, and they can't communicate via phone, so the assistant supervisors are critical. Unfortunately, it seems the supreme grade 1 sorcerer they have with them, who if you'll remember is Maki's uncle, her father is this guy's younger brother, is a drunk who is of no help to them. He may sound like him, but Coffee Dad he ain't. Cutting back to Megumi and Yuji on the ground, they confirm that Ino is still alive, but Yuji wants payback. Megumi snaps him out of that line of thought, reminding him that their priority is Gojo, and that the people up top might have already fled when the curtain dispersed. He also points out that they need to get Ino medical attention. Yuji calms down and tells Megumi he'll leave Ino to him and go on ahead towards Gojo. Megumi understands it's the best move tactically, but worries about Yuji going it alone in the war zone that used to be known as Shibuya. He agrees, and Yuji predicts his usual words of concern, and also points out that he still has Mekamaru, even though the earpiece hasn't been communicating with him in a while.
Then we jump back to Mei. Wee Wee notices the curtain lift, and
as Mei gets excited about Gojo's wallet, we cut to Get-Toned reacting in surprise with how fast she took out the trash. Cutting once more, we're now at 9:40 p.m., which was probably right around the time Yuji and Team Nanami met up, or just afterwards. And we're on Shoto Bunkamura Street, outside the curtain. Nobara and Nita are running, and they encounter Blonde Shithead. Blonde Shithead says some creeper shit, and Nobara tells Nita to hide, as she'll deal with this guy quickly. Nobara directs Nita to run into Bunkamura like she's going to hide in there, but instead to cut through the adjacent Tokyu shop and back outside. He chucks his sword at them as Nita takes off, and Nobara intercepts the blade. She notes that using a cursed tool even when you have a technique usually means you're a mid-range fighter, which means it's to her advantage to get in close and engage in CQC. She swipes at him, which he manages to dodge, and wonders if they've met before. Hilariously, even though she does remember him, Nobara hits him with the good old Kiki Palmer
Sorry to this man. I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is.
As Nita runs through Bunkamura, Blonde Shithead suddenly knows she's not actually hiding somehow, and we see as his sword has a mind of its own and attacks Nita as he dashes inside. Nobara sees Nita on the ground, and Blonde Shithead reveals his stance on abusing women, which comes as a shock to no one. Angering Nobara, she lunges at him, which he takes advantage of, summoning his sword to his hand and catching her off guard with a shallow cut to the outside of her left thigh, followed up with a punch from the handle of the sword to her chin. She crumbles to the ground. Blonde Shithead takes this opportunity to continue being blonde and a shithead, taunting Nobara and also admitting he doesn't fully understand his own technique. Nobara tries to buy time by talking, asking him what the villains are after, but the Blonde Shithead just keeps being a shithead with blonde hair. He stabs Nita again, acting like a cat playing with its prey, and as Nobara stands to try and stop him, a blonde man who is not a shithead appears, and he looks pissed. Blonde Shithead wonders aloud if it's okay for him to kill non-black suits as well, as if he even stands a chance. Nanami approaches menacingly, wrapping his tie around his hand, indicating that he's gone into overtime. Nobara wonders how he's here by himself when he came to Shibuya with Megumi. Blonde Shithead proves he must be a natural blonde, as he tries to play the hostage card with Nita, only to notice that she's only a dyed blonde and so was smart enough to drag herself away up the stairs. Nanami hovers over Blonde Shithead and begins the interrogation. Blonde Shithead takes a swipe at him, but achieves no effect on target. He goes for a kick as well, but feels like he just kicked a stone wall. Nanami gives him one more chance, repeating his question. When Blonde Shithead fails to answer a second time, Nanami completes the Batman impersonation by turning the interrogation violent. With a critical strike to the shithead, he bounces him off the floor head first and sends him flying backwards over the sales counter into a product display. Nobara is impressed by this, and the shithead seems to be in a bad place. He thinks to himself how he'd be dead if not for his technique, and turns to run, but Nanami ain't having none of that. He asks the question again, and Blonde Shithead again fails to answer properly. This time, Nanami practices his gut punch, and the sword tries to fly in for a sneak attack behind Nanami. Nobara saves him by hitting the handle with a nail, sticking it to the wall. Blonde Shithead is stupid enough to stop focusing on Nanami to respond to her getting in his way, and Nanami reasserts his control over the situation. He switches gears to confirm with the shithead if the dead assistant supervisors were his doing, and he can only sputter out a half-hearted apology. This critical strike to the face sends the shithead through the glass shop front, outside, and into the corner of another building, hopefully dead. As Nobara looks on in awe, noting what it means to be a grade 1 sorcerer, Nanami directs her to come with him to find Nita. We cut back to Mei, who is confronted by Get-Toned. As she ponders whether he is real or not, he summons a special grade disease curse, the smallpox deity. He tells her he'll battle her if she manages to exorcise the spirit. The spirit immediately performs a domain expansion which traps Mei in a coffin and drops a big ol' rock on her. It counts down from 3, but before it can hit 1,
Mei breaks out of the rock and the hard place, and remarks upon how long it's been since she was actually in any real danger. We cut to Yuji running through Shibuya Station at 10:10 p.m., noting how empty it is and how he thought there was a bunch of people in there. We cut again back to Nanami, Nobara, and Nita. Nanami confirms that Ijichi is still alive, as he did originally intend to become a sorcerer. Nanami confirms to them that Gojo has been sealed, and asks them to wait for rescue. He says he's going to go meet up with Maki and her uncle. Nobara wants to come along, but he tells her no, because he is now the minimum level of strength the remaining combatants will need, and she'd just get in the way. Finally, we cut back to Yuji arriving at the bottom of a set of escalators, where he's confronted by the man seeking revenge for the killing of his brothers, Choso, and the episode ends. With the recap out of the way, let's go over the main points of the plot. 1. Megumi and Yuji break the nails for the curtain, dispersing it. Ino gets launched off the roof, and they save him. 2. Sweater Boy's seance transformation into Toji goes awry, and Toji manages to completely take over the body, effectively having resurrected. He takes out the granny. 3. Megumi leaves to take Ino for medical attention, and Yuji heads towards the station. 4. Nita and Nobara head away from Maki and her uncle to check on Ijichi, but are confronted by Blonde Shithead. 5. While Blonde Shithead continues to be a shithead of the blonde variety, Nanami arrives to show him the true path of nobility all blondes should seek to walk. 6. Nanami Jujutsu's Blonde Shithead's Kaisen. 7. Getonte confronts Mei and summons the smallpox deity to attack her. 8. Nanami confirms Ijichi is alive with Nobara and Nita, and tells them to wait for rescue as he goes to meet up with Maki and her uncle. 9. Yuji makes it to Shibuya Station, where he is confronted by Choso, who seeks revenge for his brothers.
Now let's get into some analysis. First, I want to revisit the discussion about the connection between the body and the soul, because the development involving the return of Toji casts doubt on Getonte's claim that the body and the soul must be one and the same. First of all, Ogami says that she can selectively summon the body information and soul information of a deceased person separately, which would imply that they indeed must be different things from each other. There is obviously still a connection of some type implied because the object Sweater Boy ingested was a piece of Toji's remains, which I'll explain more when we go over the volume extras. So there's obviously a link between the soul and the body if remains are always ingested as part of her summoning process, and she could summon soul information that way as well. Toji says that he thinks Sweater Boy's soul lost to his body, implying a sort of tug-of-war relationship between the body and the soul, which actually matches with Mahito's technique and outlook. Using idle transfiguration, Mahito forces the soul to reshape the body, but Toji shows that with the strength of a heavenly restricted body, the body can instead either overwrite the soul and apparently replace an already existing soul with the one associated with the body, or at least boot it out of the driver's seat, so to speak, and make the original person a passenger in their own body. This is further supported by what we've seen of the relationship between Yuji and Sukuna, as Sukuna seems to be surprised at first when Yuji forcefully takes control of his body back from Sukuna. Their situation is pointed out by Mahito to be a one body, two souls fighting for control of it type situation, and we know Yuji to be an exceptionally gifted physical fighter who was pretty much superhuman even before his housing of Sukuna gave him access to cursed energy. So in this way, I think the connection between body and soul is more of a tug of war, where if one is stronger than the other, it can dominate the weaker one. For most people, their soul is actually stronger than their body, so once Mahito manipulates it, it forcefully shapeshifts them. However, in the case of a Toji or Yuji, who have superhuman bodies to a special degree, like beyond even the normal superhuman capabilities of a sorcerer, their body can actually overpower a soul and force it to conform to the body, or perhaps even summon it into a body that it wasn't in previously. Hence why Toji also regained his personality even though Ogami didn't summon his soul herself. Getonte seems to misunderstand this because his technique functions solely in the physical realm. He takes over dead bodies by replacing the brain, the organ which physically operates the body. Sure, he somehow gains their memories as well, even though those should be stored in the brain and therefore be beyond his ability to access. But it's possible that the soul just automatically feeds the memories to the brain of the body it's associated with unless the soul refuses. After all, Sukuna inherited Yuji's memories as was revealed in the databook. Seeing as how Yuji's soul has never been associated with Sukuna's body, and probably because Sukuna refused to allow his memories to be passed to Yuji's brain, he didn't receive Sukuna's memories in return. If anyone would know how to do that, it would probably be Sukuna. Most people probably wouldn't though, meaning Getonte would always receive his host's memories because their soul was unaware of how to keep them from being transmitted. Or, perhaps Getonte doesn't actually have a soul, seeing as how he no longer has his original body at all and hasn't for quite some time, or perhaps his technique inherently made him soulless. Mahito unfortunately has not weighed in on the matter, but we haven't heard anything from him about Getonte having two souls, which he would have to have if both the brain thing and Geto's body both still had their souls. This is one of those things I think is ultimately left kind of ambiguous, mainly because Akutami himself just doesn't know because he never put this much thought into it. And that's fine. As I always say, if you think too hard about it, eventually it will stop making sense. The fun is in seeing just how far you can go before that happens. And sometimes you get to be surprised when you realize an author really did actually think it all the way through. Next, we're taking a Juju stroll. This week we've got a look at Shoto Bunkamura Street, where Nobara and Nita confronted Blonde Shithead. Here's Shoto Bunkamura Street. I think this is the path Nobara and Nita probably took to get here, as they were heading towards Ichichi's location. Starting near the area we last saw Nobara, Maki, and Maki's uncle, they went north and turned east to head through the curtain, cut across the scramble crossing, then turned back north. Of course, they ran into Blonde Shithead here, outside Bunkamura, which is a large multi-shop department store / concert hall. Here's where Nita ran into the building. And then a little further down the street, here's a shot of the storefront where I think Nanami smashed him through the wall. If we turn around, I think this here is the wall he got smashed into, and you can kind of see up the street the stairs here that are in the background of the shot. Finally, let's look at the volume extras for these chapters in the manga. After chapter 98, we get this page explaining that the object Sweater Boy swallowed as a piece of Toji's remains. It also claims that invoking the name the person being summoned used at the height of their power is more effective in necromancy. After chapter 99, we get a page where Akutami fesses up to accidentally drawing Nobara's hammer differently across several appearances, and also that he keeps forgetting to draw Nanami's watch. Both issues the anime rectified. After chapter 100, we get a page explaining Ino's technique a bit, like I went over last episode. Still no info on Ryu, unfortunately. And that's my episode recap and story analysis for the 12th episode of the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen. Make sure to subscribe and turn on bell notifications if you want to be here as soon as possible each week, as I put out new videos for each episode as it airs, and feel free to drop a comment with suggestions as to other videos you might like to see, such as character analysis videos or explanations. Thanks for watching.